Well, it's 6 p.m. So, would you all like to get started? I'm seeing a bunch of heads nod. Yes. Okay. So a little bit on the front side. So, Melissa has agreed to be the chair of the committee, and Robert Bonner has agreed to be the vice chair. So we've finalized that stuff in the last couple of days. So if you don't mind, for the two, I'll kind of run the meeting tonight, and then when we get to the next one, you can kind of see how it works that way. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. And we'll do a roll call. Get my pen. So Melissa Daly is present. Robert Bonner is present. Gabriel is present. Leslie is here. Irma is here. Shay Montoya is excused this evening, as is Robert Moxley. And we're missing Dominic. Don't see. Okay. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through some introductions so you can all say a little bit about yourself and why you're here. And most of it is because the mayor reached out to you, twisted your arms. So I'm Doug Rux. I'm the Community Development Director, and I'm the managing this project at this point in time. And Patrick, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick Davenport. I'm the new planning manager for the city. And I'm listening and learning, and look forward to participating and helping you all get through this project in any way I can. Thank you.
Okay. Melissa, why don't we go with you next?
Okay, my name's Melissa Daly. I am a planner in my day job. I work in affordable housing for the Housing Authority of Washington County. I've worked in affordable housing for almost 15 years now, and lived in Newburgh since 2012. I have a kid who's in middle school, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Robert? You have to turn your mic on, Robert. We can't hear you. Robert, you have to turn your audio on. We can't hear you.
I thought I'd done that.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
At the last Zoom meeting, they said I got too loud, so let me know. My name is Robert Bonner. I'm a retired professor from George Fox University. My focus was teaching people who wanted to be elementary teachers. And the way I'm involved in this is for about the past 5 or 6 years, I've been a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. At one time serving on the board until my schedule did not allow me those nightly meetings. So that's my interest.
Okay, thank you. Gabriel?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Gabriel, last name Škulec. I'm a Newburgh resident, and I got into the more affordable housing category because of my hands-on experience with tiny houses on wheels.
Okay. Dominic?
Hello, my name is Dominic Seymour. I own and operate a small remodeling contracting firm. We've kind of moved off and we specialize in fireplace installation. And, I've been speaking with the mayor back and forth about ways to get involved, and this came up. So I'm taking advantage of the opportunity.
Okay. Leslie?
Hi there, I'm Leslie. Leslie Murray, and I am the lead pastor up at North Valley Friends Church, corner of College and North Valley Road. I have 4 kids, been in Newburgh for 25 years, went to George Fox a long time ago. And I come to this conversation because North Valley is concerned about affordable housing and transitional housing. We have a couple on our property and would love to put some more to help with transitional housing in Newburgh.
Okay. Irma, you're up next.
Hi, my name is Irma Vera, and I am the lead pastor of the Foursquare Church for the Spanish community, the Spanish-speaking people. And I got involved with this, like you mentioned it before, Rick reached out, and so I am here to see how can we help and how we can be part of this.
Okay, thank you. Sue, do we have anybody who might be sitting out there for public comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. So Sue Ryan is our city recorder. Sue, why don't you introduce yourself? Last but not least.
I'm the Zoom host for your meeting. I'm the city recorder. I work with the city council and staff.
Thanks, Sue. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk through the agenda that we mailed out and what's the purpose of this middle housing project. In the 2019 legislative session, they passed a bill, House Bill 2001. It was sponsored by Speaker Kotek. And that bill has basically 2 components of it. Overall, it's addressing what's called middle housing. And we'll show you a graphic when you have your first official meeting with the consultants. But we're talking about that housing that includes duplexes, triplexes, quads, cottage cluster housing, and townhouses. And so the Department of Land Conservation and Development has been working diligently to adopt new administrative rules. And so I included that in your packet. It's Chapter 660, Division 46. And they've adopted 2 components of that. There's a third that's pending, which is supposed to be approved in November. So the first one that they approved was called for infrastructure-based time extension requests. And that is a program that communities can look at areas within their community that may have infrastructure deficiencies, that if you add the additional middle housing, it would be encumbered by, could be a lack of water systems, water lines are too small, storm drainage systems, wastewater systems, sanitary sewer, another word for that, or transportation. So we applied for a grant and received a $25,000 grant from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And we identified 2 areas in town where we thought we may have infrastructure concerns. And that is the area just north of downtown up to the railroad tracks, one of the early plat areas of the community. And then the area south of downtown, all the way down to the bypass. And it goes from Chehalem Creek on the west side to Hess Creek on the east side. We have a separate group who's looking at that. It's actually our planning commission. We hired 4 different consulting firms to do that analysis for us. We shared the preliminary results of that with the planning commission last week, and then we'll be taking a final document to them at their meeting in November. And what we found from that analysis is that we have some deficiencies in our water system to be able to accommodate middle housing in those areas. In those areas, we've got water lines that are 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch. And our standard today is all the lines are supposed to be 8-inch water lines so we can meet fire flow. So we will, like I said, get back to our planning commission with that information in November, and then that goes to the city council in December. And I have to submit those reports to the state by the end of December of 2020. And they will evaluate it and let us know if they agree with our analysis. And if they did, it could be that we get a time extension to figure out the infrastructure for those areas for the water system. That would then preclude the ability to start with duplexes or more than what we already currently allow within our code. The second piece of that was duplex development. And so you may have read in the paper, and people I think sometimes misqualify it, but it now is where you have single family zoning and allow single family homes, is that you now have to allow duplexes in that same area. And so we applied again for a grant to DLCD. We got that grant. And we have to comply with the provisions by June 30th of 2021. Now, Newburgh is a community that falls in the range of between 10,000 and 25,000 in population. That means we have to comply with the duplex provisions by June 30th of 2021. If we don't adopt regulations, then we have to follow basically a model code that DLCD has put together. And so we said we want to go ahead and move forward and address the issue about duplexes. So the second part of that is the triplexes, the quads, the cottage cluster housing, and the townhouses. Those provisions apply to communities that are above 25,000 in population. Well, Newburgh's population is 24,045. And so we had a conversation with the city council, and when we were applying for these grants, and said, should we go ahead and do all of the middle housing, because we're so close to that 25,000 population that as soon as we got there, then we'd have to go through and address the triplexes and the quads and so forth. And they said yes. And so part of our grant approval includes those other missing middle housing components. So as we move forward in all of this, we're going to start with the duplex work. And then we'll move into dealing with the other middle housing components. You will have a series of meetings, and I'll go through that, and I will send all of you an email for upcoming meetings. But we will be working with a consultant to be able to do that. The role of this committee is advisory in nature. So you will be advisory to our consultant and to city staff. As we move through these processes, you will end up coming up with a recommendation. And so the first recommendation will be addressing the duplex regulations that we will develop. Your recommendation will then go on to the Planning Commission, and your recommendation will also be presented to the City Council. So the City Council is kind of looking at this body is doing the heavy lifting. So I'm hoping that you will all be engaged and you will have lots of feedback. With the duplex provisions, Patrick and I were actually at a conference today, a virtual conference, not in person. And it was about, a lot of it was about housing. It was about diversity, equity, and inclusion in housing and other land use programs that we're involved in statewide and locally in Newburgh. And so there'll be some challenges. I've heard initially from community residents is, well, that vacant lot next to me, I don't want a duplex there. You know, I want it to be the same type of house I've got. I want it to be a detached single family home. I've heard comments from community members about the vacant field, you know, behind my house that hasn't developed yet. You know, I don't want duplexes there, or I don't want fourplexes there. But the state law says wherever we zone for single family, allow single family, we now have to allow duplex development. There are provisions in the model code that say you don't require parking for duplexes, but then the administrative rule says you can require basically up to 2 parking spaces for that duplex. That means essentially one space per unit. That then puts potentially some pressure on the street and people parking on the street. And the Planning Commission has dealt with on-street parking issues since I've been here, almost 6 years, and concerns we've heard from residents about the congestion on the street, no place to park. You know, could be that I have a family, I have 3 kids now, they're all teenagers. You know, I've got one that's a sophomore, one that's a junior, and one's a senior in high school, and everybody drives, and mom and dad drive, and there's 5 vehicles, and there's not enough room to park off the street, so they park on the street. We will likely hear we will have discussions about design of duplexes. We'll have conversations about the lot size to accommodate a duplex. There's some provisions in the administrative rule on structure height. There's also some provisions in the administrative rule addressing design standards for duplexes. And essentially, and the consultants will get into this more with all of you, is that if you don't have design standards for your single family house, you can't have more restrictive design standards for duplexes. And right now, our requirements for a single family home is we look at the lot size, the building coverage, the driveway coverage, the setbacks, and the structure height. So it's very clear. It's what's called clear and objective standards. And if you meet those, then we check off, Patrick checks off in our permit system to be able to release the building permit for that single family home. So we'll have a lot of discussions about that as well. With our chair and our vice chair, their responsibilities will be to basically, what I'm doing this evening is get the meeting called to order. I will take the roll. Your next meeting, you will have some minutes that will capture the discussion that we're having this evening. We'll probably have to go through introductions again at our next meeting because we have a couple members who are not able to make it tonight. And then at that point, I kind of turn it over to the consultants and they will walk you through information. Currently, they are in the process of doing what's called a code audit. So they're looking at our current regulations in our development code regarding duplexes and looking at the model code and the administrative rule to determine and identify where do we need to make changes in order to comply with the new state law and the administrative rules that apply to this. You will get packets 1 week in advance of each meeting. So you have some time to be able to review it, digest it, write down your notes, questions and so forth that you will want to ask at the meeting. The consultants, Sue will be monitoring. She's the host of the meetings, but a lot of it will be the work from the consultant facilitating. And we always have lots of opportunities for comments and feedback. I like to, if you have questions as we're going through, ask them then. If you hold them, you might forget later because you keep getting new information and all of a sudden there's the next new thought I have and the next new question. So I always like to be able to interrupt the consultants or myself and stop and we'll answer those questions appropriately. Our consultant is a company called 3J Consulting. They are doing a variety of these kinds of projects right now around the state. I think they're working on 4 or 5. And Newburgh is part of that mix. And so we're working with their planning group. They are a multidisciplinary firm. They do engineering work and planning work and landscape work, landscape design work and so forth. The project manager for them, his name is Steve Faust. I've known Steve for a number of years. We've worked on different projects together. And the sub-consultant working for them, her name is Elizabeth Decker, and she owns a private consulting firm called Jet Planning. So you will get to know both of them very, very well over the course of the next 7 months or so. Heather Austin also works for 3J Consulting, and she is participating in the project as well. I'm going to stop there. Any questions yet? I'm trying to get you all done so that you can go have dinner. Public meetings. So always have to say thank you for volunteering. We have many different ad hoc committees and standing committees and commissions within the city, and we can't get our work done without all of you helping us get the work done. You are considered a public body. That means that all of our meetings are public. And so because of the pandemic, we are doing all of our meetings over Zoom at this point in time. We're not sure when we'll be able to get back to face-to-face meetings. The meetings are recorded. So the audio gets posted up on the city's website. As I mentioned earlier, we also will have written minutes of the meeting. The public is notified of the meetings. Again, we notice everything a week in advance. And so somebody can actually log into the Zoom. And when we get to the public comment portion, if there is someone out there, Sue can promote them up so that they can speak to the committee and share their views and opinions. Because you are a public body, you also have to follow the state ethics rules. That one always gets everybody. So the Oregon Government Ethics Commission has a set of rules. I will help guide you through those. If we start to go in a direction where I believe there may be some concerns, I will raise that. But the thing to really remember about that is, the public is out there able to listen to your discussions. They can read the information from your discussions. They can participate in your meetings. Treat them respectfully. We also ask that our citizens treat our committee members respectfully. If things sometimes get a little heated, I will step in on behalf of the chair and the vice chair and try to get that corralled back and back on track so that everything is appropriate. Your email accounts. So Sue had sent out to you instructions how to set up and log into your city email. Has everybody been able to do that? Mm-hmm. Great. I'm seeing thumbs up, shaking of heads. Irma's going, no. So I sent those instructions out again. We send everything to your city email account. That's the way we have a public record of all of those communications. I have been blind copying all of my committees and commissions with their personal email, just because sometimes people forget. Your city email account your password lasts for 3 months. At that time, you'll have to reset your password. So this project's going to go longer than 3 months. And so you're going to have to reset your password a couple of times. If you have issues getting access into your city email account, you can contact Sue Ryan and Sue will assist you in getting connected. But the important thing is we will send things directly to your city email account. Virtual meetings. As I mentioned earlier, all of our meetings are going to be conducted using Zoom. You will see on the agendas, it will have a Zoom link. It also has phone numbers for those who want to dial in to a particular meeting because they don't have video capability. You will get a separate, so my staff will send out to you the agendas and the material. And Sue will send out to you a panelist invite, which is separate than the Zoom link that's on the agenda. So that's how you all got here tonight, hopefully, is you clicked on, click here as a panelist, and that brought you into the meeting. Again, I think I'll stop. Questions? Okay. I'll circle back. And so again, the first task that we're going to be working on is the duplex provisions. The Land Conservation and Development Commission is supposed to adopt at their November meeting the other middle housing components. As soon as that information is available, that administrative rule, we'll make sure that we share that with you. So we're going to start with one, then we're going to get an overlap. I mean, you're going to be kind of doing two things at once. Future meetings. I mentioned I will send an email out on this, but if you have a pen and a paper and you want to write this down, your next meeting will be on November 4th, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. The meeting following that will be on November 18th at 6 p.m. We will be doing some form of a public open house virtually on December 15th. That happens to be a Tuesday. Your next Citizens Committee meeting will be occurring on January 20th, which is a Wednesday. So I tried to keep a theme, trying to hold all of our meetings on Wednesdays. Your meeting following that will be on February 3rd. And then the next meeting of this committee would be on March 10th. And that's as far as I've got scheduled out so far. We will be having another public community virtual open house sometime in February as well, but we don't have a date established for that yet. So again, I will get you an email so you can get it on your calendars and hold those dates. We anticipate the meetings will take about 2 hours. This orientation, like I said, I was trying to get done in 30 or 45 minutes so I could release you and you can go enjoy your evening. But typically the meetings we're going to schedule for 2 hours. Patrick, anything else you might want to add?
No, not at this time, Doug.
Okay.
Thank you.
Melissa, anything?
Yeah, I was wondering if you might have any resources to send us on either articles on middle housing that you think would be helpful or some short videos.
There are a few pieces out there. Yeah, I can dig some stuff up. Okay. Writing myself a note. Robert, anything?
Not that I can think of right now.
Well, we're changing roles. You used to be the professor, so I'll be the professor for a little while. How's that?
Hey, that sounds good. And
Irma?
see, if you're the professor, what we do, what the students do is this. Let's see, where is it? There. So I'm there.
Irma, anything from you?
Just got a question. You said that you're going to send me again that link so I can set it up my email, because I receive it and I try it, but I think I tried so many times that it lacked me something happened, and then I send it back the email asking for help. But
I will have Sue reach out to you and coordinate on that.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dominic, anything?
Would there be any issue with me reaching out to members of the community via social media or other to just sort of ask for input ahead of time, or do I need to kind of leave that up to them if they want to join the meeting?
No, I think that's a good point to bring up. You know, as committee members, you have the ability to reach out to other community members to get opinions and feedback and so forth, and bring that back to this committee and be able to share that. We have a public involvement plan, engagement plan that the consultants have put together for this project. We've reviewed that, just a couple of small tweaks I'm making to it. But we will be we'll end up having a project website that we can direct people to. We will be using social media to get the word out through Facebook and Instagram. We have an in-house community engagement specialist, and so we may be connecting with that platform called Nextdoor as another way to get information out to the community members. And when we get to our virtual open houses, we will have opportunities for people to, you know, get in, look at information and so forth, and provide us written comments that we can catalog. We will be creating an email list as well. And so as people provide comments to us, we'll ask for their email and we'll put them on a list. So that way we can continue to push out agendas when we're doing community open house, virtual events, direct them to the project website, and, you know, remind them that they can also check their social media platforms for information that we'll be pushing out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Leslie.
Nothing here.
Okay. And Gabriel.
No questions right now, no.
Okay. Well, then that's all that I have for this evening. So I'm actually right on target. I'm at about 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Patrick,
Doug?
go ahead.
Yeah, if the committee would think it would be useful, and of course you think it would be useful, should we provide a few examples of these housing types around the city? So as the committee members are driving around, you can just see what one looks like in person. And you might see some older ones and newer ones and a couple of samples. You just drive by and just see how, just get the feel of what those units look like. Would that be useful?
Would that be useful for all of you? If so, you can just shake your heads. Okay. Yeah, we can anticipate getting an email from you that will have some additional information to help you get oriented. We're going to go through on November 4th at the meeting, and the consultant will do a little bit more of a recap. But I didn't want to waste their time, 30 minutes of their time listening to me ramble on. You guys get to listen to me ramble on instead. So we'll go through some recapping of all of this. And right now we're working on the agenda of material that we'll be presenting to you at that meeting on November 4th.
Patrick, as you talk about the duplexes or these different types of housing, are you going to use examples? For example, Habitat for Humanity has some duplexes as well as other duplexes within the city.
Absolutely. And if since I'm new, I don't know the city all that well. So if you all would like to just send me an address, I can put together a small report of the examples and a few statistics on those dwellings, if you like. So I need some input from you all of saying some examples, real life examples, and yeah, that would be very helpful for me. Thank you.
Yeah, we have not had a lot of duplex development for quite a while. Habitat's done a few projects, but a lot of the duplexes we have go back into the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Mm-hmm. It's a housing product that, for whatever reason, really hasn't been done much. Triplexes, we don't have a lot of that development type. We have no regulations for cottage cluster housing at all. But I know some communities that have done it and they've been successful. Patrick came from the Bend area, and so there's a project that people talk about all the time over there. And we do have a little bit of townhouse development, but something we don't have a lot of. And so as we try to address this issue about housing affordability, so a little more information maybe than what you want, is Newburgh is classified as a rent burden community. That means we have 28% of our renters pay 50% or more of their income towards their housing costs. That's their rent and their utilities. And that number has gone up. So when we got designated as one of those communities, I have a separate process I have to go through every year out of House Bill 4006 and do all this reporting and community meetings that need to occur. And part of this is, we haven't been building much in the way of apartments lately because we have a deficiency on land that allows apartments. We went through the Great Recession and where development by and large kind of stopped. We went from doing 300 housing units a year, and we dropped down to 30. And that went on for 5 or 6 years. We just changed regulations on accessory dwelling units, and that was another state law that came down. And so worked through with the committee and made all those changes. And so now we're addressing this middle housing component of it. It's challenging for people that are out there to be able to purchase and or rent. We did a housing needs analysis, which is available on the city's website. And the council accepted that document in 2019. So there's lots of good information in there. We've shared that with our consultants. And we're in the process of updating that housing needs analysis right now. And that project will be finished up in February of 2021. But that document drills down with a lot of data. So if you like data and you like to read numbers and tables and charts and graphs and all of that, there's lots of good information in that report. But we've seen that if we don't make some policy changes and shifts, then we would continue to replicate what's been happening since the 60s, which is a lot of detached single family homes and not a lot of other housing types. And when you look at the income levels within Newburgh, we're trying to do things on the economic development side to create family wage jobs, but people working in a fast food restaurant or a convenience store or in a restaurant to all the way to somebody working in a manufacturing facility and things in between. And it's very challenging for somebody who makes less than $25,000 a year. $25,000 a year means that that's your family income. That means you can afford rent of about $625 a month. And rent in Newburgh for a 2-bedroom apartment is, in the $1,200 to $1,400 range. And so it's challenging for people to find housing that they can afford in this community. So middle housing it's not a silver bullet, but it is a way to try to provide different housing types than what we've done traditionally. And even in our housing needs analysis, where we historically about 72% of our housing stock was detached single family, over the next 20 years, that document is identifying that only 60% of our housing between 2021 and 2041 would be detached single family. And we would have an increase in attached type housing units and multifamily units because they are more affordable. They're more cost effective for households to be able to afford those. So we're trying to find that right balance for the community overall. Some of this came up. Some of you may have participated. We did a community visioning program that the council adopted last August 19th. And housing affordability is something that came up from the community members that we need to address as a community overall. There was the comment about transitional housing, and that's another piece. And we're having conversations with different organizations in the hospital about how to provide that. Gabriel brought up the issue about tiny homes. I'm going to council on November 2nd, and I have a list of 42 work items. This list started with 9 3 years ago, and has now grown to 42 items to work on addressing housing in Newburgh. So it's a big issue. There's a Housing Newburgh group. Mayor Rogers and others helped work on that program before he became mayor, and they're the ones who came up with the original 9 proposals. The middle housing is one of those 42 work items, but they don't all happen real quickly. You'll find that going through these processes, it takes time. It can take 7 months to a year to try to put regulations and stuff together to try to take the USS Roosevelt and shift it from where it's going in a different direction. And it doesn't turn on a dime. It's a slow turn to get to where we want to go. And this community has been working on affordable housing issues for over a decade. And we've done a number of things. I have a list, if anybody ever wants to see it, of things that have been done, but there's much more to do in the future.
Are we likely to have an end product that's much different than the state model? And what are our options for incentivizing building these kinds of homes? Is it tax breaks and regulations? What's the plan?
Yeah. As we go through this, you'll have an option that we can follow the model code, or there's an alternative. And so there'll be some flexibility, and the consultants will go and talk through with all of you what that little bit of flexibility is that we have. When we get to the other middle housing stuff, there's a little more flex. Today, Patrick and I did this, and we've got essentially 2 tracks that lead to compliance. One is follow the model codes. Another one is it gives you some flexibility, but then it requires all this additional reporting, and there's matrix that you have to meet. On the other middle housing, keep this in mind, is that it does not require that we allow those other middle housing types everywhere where we allow single families. We allow it in areas, and we're going to have to work through what areas within Newburgh we would like to have that other middle housing. So I don't want to jump too far in front because they haven't even adopted the administrative rule yet for that last piece, but that's the direction that it's going. So yeah, there is a little bit of flexibility, Dominic, but a lot of it's going to be kind of pushed. Now, if you look at what we currently have is in our code to try to do a duplex, it requires that you have to have a 10,000 square foot lot. So a developer says, well, if I've got a piece of land and it's 10,000 square feet, I'll partition that and I'll create 2 lots and I'll build 2 single family homes. So one of the things I've shared with the consultant is, well, if you can have a 2,200 square foot detached single family home, and that's okay, on a 5,000 square foot lot, why can't you have a 2,200 square foot duplex divided in 2? It's 1,100 square feet on each side. It still has the same scale as a single family home, but you're being more efficient with the land that you have. And that's going to create some rubs because somebody may have that vacant lot in a subdivision sitting next to them. And under that scenario, they say, but I don't want a duplex next to me because it's not the same housing type that I'm living in.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I suppose we could get into some heated debates with the residents if there's certain areas of town where the multifamily is allowed and some areas where it's not. There's going to be some rub there, I would suppose.
And we've had that. We several years ago, we took some low density residential land and we upzoned it to high density residential for an apartment project. And we got a lot of community feedback on that one. And you know, the bottom line was kind of the NIMBY, I don't want that in my backyard, not in my backyard. And it changed the character of their residential area. But multifamily is something that we really need in this community. I think at one point in time, Newburgh did not do a multifamily project, which is essentially 3 units or more for over a 10-year period. And so that 10-year period, it was all about building detached single family houses.
I think it is really important, and I appreciate being on this committee with you all and your work you're doing here, and I hope we can make a difference.
Okay. Well, that's all I have this evening. So if you don't have any other questions, I will let you get to your evening festivities, whatever they may be. Hopefully it's dinner.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Sue.